Hey guys, Arash Vasugi here. I wanted to have a conversation with you about how you can absolutely live the way you want to live. Now, I look back over 20 years of working on bettering myself every day, and I almost quit. So if you're thinking about quitting, don't quit. I was hosting a webinar this week on the system that I created on how to create your seven-figure self-image. And a story came in my mind. I'd been working at this for 3 years, and I was in San Francisco at a wedding, and I had so much frustration, and maybe you're frustrated right now, you could relate to that. And I'm getting ready in the hotel room to go to my friend John Dugan's wedding. And I just had enough. I just had this breaking point. And I said to my wife, this isn't working for me. I'm gonna do something else. And I really thought I was gonna go back and look for another job. And I was in a job at the time, but I didn't love it. And I said, maybe there's something else out there. Maybe I'll go back to school. Well, that wasn't anything I wanted. I definitely did not want to go back to school. Anyhow, go to the wedding. The wedding was amazing. The Yankees were in the postseason. I'm a huge Yankees fan. And I remember they came back and I ran across the hotel to go watch the end of the game, and they won. But I woke up the next morning and I said, I'm not going to give up. I've got to figure this out. It was the weirdest thing. I was 10x more determined. I have no idea why. Well, I kind of do now. But at the time, I didn't know why. Because I really thought I was going to quit on this. And I'm sharing this with you so you don't quit. And I want you to understand the difference between people who really win and people who lose is quitting. That's the only difference. Now, I didn't know how long it would take. You know, for me, it was 3 years. In the next 6 months, everything changed. And I think everything changed because that night. Because that night I had this choice where I was quitting or not quitting, quitting or not quitting. Anyhow, I woke up the next day, as I said, so determined, and I just got back into the material. I just got back in, but I was doing the material so wrong. I was just gathering the information. And I lost my job soon after. And I attracted my mentor, but I don't think I attracted my mentor by accident. I still, to this day, don't think I create the relationship I did with Bob Proctor if I wasn't so determined. It was literally weeks later from that moment that everything changed for me. You know, I left my job when my company sold in December. That was in October, so it was just weeks later. And literally everything changed from that point. But I learned so many lessons along the way, and that's how I created my framework. I love creating content on YouTube. Why do I love it? Because I started on books and YouTube. That's where I started. YouTube was in the infancy, and I want to keep giving all of you so much value. I think, you know, this is what I've been told from my clients. The value you put on YouTube is insane. It's better than 99% of the programs of what I've purchased, and you're giving it for free. Well, I'm giving it for free because I started there. I remember exactly where I was. So I always say, as I'm talking to you guys, I'm talking to who I used to be. So I could relate to you guys more than you can ever imagine. Those few months was the turning point. So if you're right now thinking, is this going to work for me? Should I settle? Never settle. I want you to bet on yourself. You know, until you bet on yourself, nothing's going to happen. You know, my mentor used to quote Steve Jobs, and now I do, that you can always look back and see how you got here. Well, I was in Italy, a few years ago, and my wife's in the shower. I'm sitting on the deck. We're in Portofino, which If you would have known me back then, I would have never thought this trip was possible. And this idea came to me, and I've shared it many times, but this idea came to me, what was it that you did that took you from failure to succeeding? And it was like a lightning bolt hit me. It was so automatic. It was the day that I bet on myself. And that's when everything changed. It was so clear to me when I had the option to stay at a job or go bet on myself. When I had nothing, I chose to bet on myself. And that's when everything changed. Now, was it easy? No. Did I think I was going crazy? Yes. But then I kept betting on myself more and more. So I remember I started earning probably about $10,000 a month pretty quickly from following my mentor's direction within 30 days. And my wife was she was working a full-time job and she was getting her master's. So she was up against it. Every day she was exhausted. And one day she came home and I had just started earning $10,000 a month. This was in the infancy. And I said, quit your job. And she goes, are you serious? I said, yes. Well, that was another time I bet on myself. And I said, I'll take care of this. And so betting on yourself is the activation of your success. Now, you may think you bet on yourself, but have you? When you bet on yourself, you never go back. When you bet on yourself, you do the disciplines. You stay up till 2 a.m. studying. You hire a mentor. You do whatever you can, even when you don't have the money. I didn't have the money, but I scraped and crawled to find the money to be able to pay my mentor, Bob Proctor. And I was the most uncoachable person at that time. I would do what was comfortable. And so a life of freedom is your destiny. I'm telling you that right now. If you have it in your heart, I want you to accept it right now. Because freedom, if one person can create freedom, everybody can. But what most people don't have is direction. So they're going from one YouTube video to the next, one to the next. So they're getting all these different philosophies and they never lock in and get inside one person's system. See, what I realized is the system is what changed my life. Instead of going and doing 1,000 different systems like I was doing before, I went and locked into one system. And that's what I encourage you to do. Like right now, if you're dissatisfied right now, you want more. If you need help, just email me. Email me and I will help you. Email me at hello@vosscoachingco.com. Now, it's no strings attached. I was you. I was dying for help because I couldn't do it myself. And I always say, people ask the wrong question. They always ask, will this work? They're asking the wrong question. You already know the way you're doing it is getting you to your current life. So it's not the right question. The real question is, when this works, what will this do for my family? When this works, how proud would I be of myself? When this works, can you imagine the amazing experiences I give to myself and my family? So we got to ask the right questions, not the wrong questions. I was always asking the wrong questions. So if I look back, I was doing too many things and I wasn't doing any of them well. I just kept gathering more information. I read more books, went to constantly seminars without executing the ideas. Well, if you get in the right system, and I encourage you to get in my system, I'm not trying to sell you. I never sell anybody anything. I invite them to change their life. So I don't need to sell anybody anything. You know, if they want to change their life, it's an invitation to get inside my system, just like I got inside my mentor system. And that's why I have thousands and thousands of success stories. It's not because I'm so much better than anybody. It's because I was a great student. And I deconstructed everything I did. At the end of my mentor's life, I was with him. And probably a few weeks before he passed away, we got on a phone call. And he said, I don't know what the hell you've done, Arash, but you've created your specialized knowledge with our work together. It is different than mine, but I want you to pass your specialized knowledge forward. And I committed to do that. I always loved giving stories of him because I promised him that I would pass forward all the lessons he taught me. And he taught me thousands of lessons. But I want to pass it forward. But I was working with a client a few weeks ago, and I said, the reason they're lessons and their stories is because I implemented what he told me to do. If they weren't, I wouldn't even remember them. But they had such a deep emotional impact on me because I committed to doing exactly what he told me to do. And I watch people constantly have a goal, but they don't build their standards. That was the first thing I did, is I eliminated my negative patterns. Like, what are your negative patterns? Think about this right now. Think about how you want to live, and just get out a piece of paper and write, what are my top 5 beliefs that are not in harmony with this? And then create a plan of attack. If you need a plan of attack, comment on this video below, I need help with a plan of attack. And I will help you with that. I will have one of my coaches call you and help you and put a plan of attack. See, it's not good enough to say, I want to eliminate these beliefs. How are we going to eliminate them? We have to have a plan to eliminate them. And right now, 98% of people are protecting themselves from what they want the most. So their goal is in a circle, and they're outside the circle. They're always negotiating with themselves. They're making every decision from their current reality rather than from the person they want to be. And when you make the decision from the person you want to be, every decision comes from your goal. Every decision comes from your future self. You know, I have this great client, and I brag about him all the time, because in 2 years of working with me, I mean, he has had a 20x growth. But the biggest growth was in happiness. Well, he was recently at my World Class Wealth event. This is an event that you will never be the same if you get in this room. The room is just amazing, and what we do in there is amazing. But we had a coaching call last week, and he said, Arash, I got to tell you, that event changed my life. And I said, well, what did you do since? He said, you were teaching how to immediately improve your self-image. And so I did exactly what you said. I said, well, what did you do? And he said, I called my CPA, and I told him, I want to start making quarterly payments from already achieving my goal. And my CPA said, no, you don't have to do that yet, Charles. He said, no, I am. And I said, in the month since that's happened, what has happened? He said, I had the best month of my life. And I said, you are a testament to doing the work. You're an absolute testament to doing the work. And I said, I love this. I'm going to share this with so many people because your story can help other people's story. See, I'm always teaching you got to come from your future self, but so few people do it. And I want you to ask yourself, have you made a decision to really create what you want? Or are you making the majority of your decisions from your current results? Because that's what I was doing, so I could relate to it. But I will tell you, don't give up. I remember when I started in this business, I was so bad. I mean, when I first started on social media, I was awful. I mean, when I say awful, I was super uncomfortable, super rigid, which isn't my personality, because I was trying to be somebody else. I thought, God, what are they going to think of me? And once I did the repetition and relaxed and just was myself, everything changed. I want you to be yourself. To create freedom, you don't have to be me. You don't have to be the person down the street. You've got to be yourself. There's only one of you. And when my life really changed is when I stopped caring about what other people thought many years ago. And I'm talking 17, 18 years ago, when I stopped worrying about what other people thought. You know, I could look back at what keeps most people stuck, because it kept me stuck, is you're trying to be somebody else. And I want you to just be yourself. When I started being myself, that's when my whole life transformed. And because of that decision to stop caring what other people thought, I've impacted thousands and thousands upon thousands and thousands of people. Yesterday I was doing a hot seat strategy session with my clients. And this woman came, she said, Arash, I was working with you 2 years ago. And she's a doctor, and she said, I was working 70, 80 hours a week, and you told me you will teach me how to not do that. She goes, in 2 years, I'm now working 13 weeks in a year. And I said, how amazing is that? Now, I want you to be my next success story. It doesn't matter to me if you want to work with me. If you don't want to work with me, don't work with me. But I can help you tremendously. I can help you understand you. You have to understand the essence of who you are is perfect. And you've got to stop coming from the physical side. Every time you come from the physical side, you're coming from the ego. And every time you're coming from the ego, you're coming from lack. You are constantly coming from lack. Now, do I think ego's all bad? No, of course. It's not. If there's a good in something, there's a bad. So we want to leverage the good part of the ego. What's the good part of the ego? Come on, get going. You're better than this. That's the good part of the ego. The bad part of the ego is comparing yourself to somebody else. Constantly shaming yourself. See, they could do it better than you. Now, is this making sense to you? But I don't want you to quit. That's my whole point. The difference, what I said earlier, between people who win, and I'm talking about winning life, and people who lose, is the people who win never quit. Now, I wanted to quit, but something inside of me, I had a deeper purpose that didn't allow me to quit. And our strength comes from our purpose. That's why goals are so important. My mentor used to tell me, goals are so good for your soul, Arash. When you have a definite goal, you are living soulfully. And I've never not had a goal, but what I've discovered is goals aren't the most important thing. It's developing who we are is the most important thing. And I remember when I was first studying this, Jim Rohn used to say, you attract success by who you become. And I didn't understand it at the time because I was super ignorant, because I was chasing. I was chasing money. I was chasing success. I was chasing the new job. I was chasing new opportunities. Well, when my life changes, I took a 2-year dive just working on who I was. And obviously I had a great mentor. I think people who don't have a mentor, they're crazy. Why? Because we all have blind spots. You know, I get people who say, well, can I do it on my own? Well, and I always have the comeback is, you've already done this on your own, see where it's gotten you. You need specific, exact direction, and it's just a few things compounded over time. And I can tell you right now, every one of you who are watching this and are still watching this video with me, you're doing a lot right. I was doing a lot right, but I didn't have the formula. You know, you're just missing a system. And that's what I was missing. All of a sudden, I found a system, and I asked so many good questions to my mentor. Like, I always had questions prepared for him. And I'd say, when you were where I was, what did you do? You know, I'd ask him so many questions. How would you lead in this situation? How would you do this? You know, I was constantly asking questions. And one day he said to me, because I'd always tell him my weaknesses. I said, Bob, I did this. I screwed up here. And he said, you're the only one who comes to me and tells me their weaknesses. And he said, it's so smart because you get it out of your energy and we work on it. Bob and I never worked on results. All we worked on was mindset. All we worked on was habits. All we worked on was standards, and all we worked on was getting better. Every time I record a video for you all, I get better every time. Because every time I get more repetition. And our repetition every day of what we do or what we don't do is creating our reputation, is creating our life. So what are the repetitions you're doing? And I want you to think of your goal. Do you know what the repetitions to get to your goal is? And I want you to look at your results. Your results tell you how well you understand this philosophy. I have people all the time come to me and they say, I know this, Arash. You don't know shit. Your results tell me you don't know it. Like, stop lying to yourself. The first thing my mentor told me, I said, I'm studying with you. I've been studying your material, other materials for 3 years. He said, Arash, you don't know anything. And he said, kid, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. He said, you don't know this, you know about it. He said, the results will always tell us whether we understand this or not. So if you're really winning, that means you really understand it. If you're plateaued, you don't understand it, but you can. You just need the proper direction. So I want you to really ask yourself, what do you really want more than anything in the world? But let's take it deeper. How do you want to live? Because that's the most important part. How do you want to live? Where are you doing what you love right now? Or are you in a self-imposed prison like I was, working at a job that I had outgrown, that I had this beautiful plan? Once I replace my income with my side hustle, then I'll leave my job. Boy, was I wrong. There is no plan B. If you have somebody in your circle telling you to go for a plan B, run. You have to burn your bridges. There's plan A, plan A, plan A, plan A. And I don't care if it takes you 5 years to figure out plan A, do not go to a plan B.